I'm Peter Adams. I'm the Group CIO at Avant Homes. I've been with Avant Homes for about 4.5 years now. Avant Homes are a UK-based house builder for private sale in the main, and my responsibilities extend to the technology information systems environment end-to-end, and to the business transformation challenges that are associated with that to drive improvements across the business and manifest those outcomes, be it with or without technology, through process change and the use of technology when needed. There's probably a couple from last year in the middle of lockdown. I think we all went through an experience where we suddenly had to deploy the operational business to work remotely. We had a number of staff who were office-based and as a result had office-based compute technology and didn't have a mobile phone because they worked from the office for their day job. The change from COVID required them all to be working from home, and we transformed that environment by moving them all onto laptops and issuing mobile phones to everybody so they could work remotely, and then scaling our network infrastructure to allow the entire business to remotely connect in a secured manner and reach into our estate. Another example would be the deployment of CRM. We had a business change last year where, because of the change of COVID, we weren't allowed to have walk-in events at our sales facilities. Everything had to be scheduled. So we implemented a system that allowed us to schedule meetings with prospects and customers to allow them to attend the site, for the site to be cleaned, enabled for that meeting, and then cleaned subsequently, so we could operate a very safe environment for our customers and for our staff to operate in where they did have to meet. And we deployed that system with great success to allow us to continue our sales journey and our meetings with customers through a very difficult business environment where you weren't allowed to have the normal run of events occur and for people to arrive as and when they felt like. Fundamental questions really are the why, the what and the how. And there's a lot of consequence from that, but fundamentally you have to have an understanding. Why are we doing, why are you doing this, why are we doing this, why does this need to be done? It's the big question, it's the $64,000 question in many instances. Why are we doing this change? Is it because we want to? Is it because we need to? Is it because there's an opportunity to do something that no one else is doing? But what is our big why, and what is the why for everybody involved in the change? The what exactly are we changing versus we're implementing CRM is not enough detail. We're implementing CRM to do what? What is it going to do for us? Who's going to be using it? How is it going to work? How does that differ from what we're currently doing? What's the impact on what we currently operate and the way of working beyond the obvious, because it's just the sales teams, right? Well, the sales teams interact with the legal teams, they interact with the finance teams, they interact with the commercial and construction teams because they're building the houses. All these people are involved in the consequence of a change of how sales capture their sales details, as an example. And then the how, is that how, what are we putting in, into whom does it impact, and what are we taking away so they're not going to be working that way anymore? How does that transition work on reality? Because everybody was used to working this way, now they can't do that, they've got to work that way. Change is difficult to embed into people. And understanding how you're going to change them helps you understand how best to embed that change in for the longer term. And those three questions, I think, are the fundamentals to being successful at any transformation journey from a business or from a technical perspective, is the why, the what, and ultimately the how. So everybody knows what's going to happen as a consequence of what we're about to do, as far as humanly possible. The consequences, there are a range of consequences that come from doing things because you were told, and the major consequences is not understanding the why, the what and the how, and therefore you run into a range of resistance. It can be as simple as, we're doing it because I said so. So you go and make a change because they said so, and then you find out, well, the people impacted by the change don't play ball. They don't engage, they don't change the process. When every opportunity presents, they revert to the old way of doing things and they bypass the controls, and it just causes a great deal of inertia and stress, which then drives you towards a more direct and more invasive way of operating, and ultimately failure, because you then don't embed the change, because I wasn't on the journey, I wasn't consulted, I didn't know why, you've just told me I've got to, I don't really want to, this doesn't make any sense, I don't understand. And all that resistance to the change, the inertia, then makes the change much more harder to do. And ultimately the failure comes about when we didn't quite get the benefit we were looking from, because every single time I've got to police the action, and you end up spending all the benefits of doing the change get spent on policing that the change is still being applied. And the minute you start looking, they stop doing. And that's the big caveat, I think, of most change. If you don't understand what you're doing and what your role is, the consequences, you may not be fully engaged and subvert the process one way or another, and end up starting over again. I think I have a couple of changes in mind where we end up putting in reports and processes and procedures to capture the data to show what was actually, to police the behaviour versus explain what we're trying to do in the first place, get them on board, show them why it helps, and be at the front end of that rather than the back end of trying to just capture people out and police them. I think Avant Homes were in a very good place. They had a mantra internally, an ethos of good, better, different, and good enough is largely their internal sort of culture and their approach to things. So we start off with that in mind, and what I did with the IT team was very much looking at what's the opportunity to do better. How do we go the extra yard every single time? What is the next thing you're trying to solve? As a consequence of solving this, what does that then mean? Solve that as well. And we look at BI as an example. We see, I want a report that tells you what the sales numbers are. Yes, you do, but you probably want to know the sales volume as well, don't you? Yes, we do. So let's put the sales volume in there, and you probably want to know what went wrong or what went well, the variances. Let's answer 5 questions, not 1 question, because all we end up with is a repeat of, but I need this, and but I need that. Well, actually, if I think sensibly and have a conversation with you for a bit longer, I find out what you really wanted to know. How are we doing against budget on volume and revenue? Well, that's not the same report as how many did we sell, but being able to think beyond that, and then having that, encouraging the team to look for what's the problem they're trying to solve. Not what is the problem they're asking you to solve. It's what they're trying to get to, and encouraging the team, and then giving them the remit of solve the real problem. Don't solve the problem presented to you. Don't argue about the problem that's been presented. Look at what they're trying to get to. What's driving the agenda, and allowing them to walk in their customer's shoes, if you will. Look at what's the outcome of what we do versus what do they ask for. Because we're all used to, I think, in a technology function, I'm used to I want you to do X. Well, why do you want me to buy into CRM system? Why are you asking me for a CRM system? What you should be saying to me is, our sales aren't working effectively. We need an improvement here. What can we do to improve things? Because in a former life, in a former role, the answer was a better contact management system, not a CRM system. The CRM was £1.5 million to spend. It would have failed because we didn't have a good sales training program, and therefore a CRM wouldn't have been effective because no one knew how to sell in the first place. So we spent the money on sales training and a simple contact system, and then went back to CRM 18 months later once we had those things in place. And for Avant Homes, it's very much the same process of what are we trying to solve, and let's solve the right problem and have an end goal in mind, not just I've made you go away for 10 minutes knowing you'll come back with the next problem in an hour. And that's where I've inculcated into the team that they've got to look beyond the challenge, and that helps them be very motivated and role, because they're not just tying up boxes, if you will, they're going one step beyond all the time.